Most of us have tried to save money at some point. We downloaded the app, made the spreadsheet, told ourselves this month would be different. And then life happened. The grocery bill crept up, the weekend cost more than planned, and by the 20th of the month, we were back to that familiar, quiet discomfort of watching the balance shrink and not entirely understanding why. But here's what's strange. In Japan, where the average family lives on a budget that would make most Western households nervous, there is a rate of household savings that consistently outpaces nearly every other developed nation. According to data from the Statistics Bureau of Japan, Japanese households save between 17 and 20% of their disposable income on average, not because they earn dramatically more, but because they relate to money differently, not through discipline, not through deprivation, through 6 habits that cost absolutely nothing to practice. And what's even more remarkable is that these habits don't feel like sacrifice, they feel like peace. If you've ever wondered how an entire culture manages to spend less, stress less, and still build quiet, steady wealth across generations, there are 6 saving habits that lie at the heart of it, and none of them require a new app, a financial advisor, or a single dollar to start. Let's discover together what each of these habits is, and how even one of them could begin to shift the way money moves through your life. There's something the Japanese understand about saving that the Western financial world tends to overlook entirely. It's not about restriction. It's not about saying no to things you love. It's about changing the relationship between you and your money so fundamentally that saving stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like a natural expression of who you are. In Japan, this is woven into everyday life through language, ritual, and habit. It's present in the way a grandmother folds the wrapping paper from a gift to use again. It's in the way a family plans next week's meals before shopping, not after. It's in the deliberate pause before any purchase that isn't immediately necessary. These aren't rules imposed from outside. They are values absorbed from childhood, passed through generations, quietly building wealth that never makes noise. The Japanese call this approach to life shikari, a word that blends carefulness, reliability, and inner strength into a single concept. To live shikari with money means to handle it with attention, not anxiety. To be present with what you have, not frantic about what you lack. And what's beautiful is that every single habit in this list is an expression of that one idea. Let's begin. Habit 1. Spend last, save first. The Japanese call this principle sakidori, which translates literally as taking first. But it's more than a budgeting trick. It's a declaration about what matters. In most Western households, the mental model of saving works like this. You earn money, you spend what you need, and whatever is left at the end of the month goes into savings. The problem with this model is structural. There is almost never anything left. Spending expands naturally to fill the space available. It always has, it always will. And so, the savings account sits quiet and mostly empty, waiting for a surplus that never quite arrives. Japanese households, particularly those that practice kakeibo, the century-old budget journaling system created in 1904 by journalist Hani Motoko, flip this entirely. The moment income arrives, a predetermined amount is moved to savings first, not whatever remains, a specific, committed portion. What's left is what gets spent. Think about a jar of water with a small hole at the bottom. If you pour in a full jar, most of it leaks out before you can use it. But if you immediately pour some into a sealed container the moment it arrives, that portion is protected. The hole can only take what remains. Your savings account is that sealed container. What you move there first is what you keep. This doesn't mean saving an enormous amount. Many Japanese families begin with as little as 5 or 8%. The amount matters less than the consistency of the structure. What Sakidori teaches is that saving isn't what you do with leftovers, it's what you do first. Try this. This month, on the day your income arrives, move a fixed amount, even 3%, into a separate account before you pay a single bill or buy a single thing. Let the rest of the month work around what remains. Habit 2. Write before you spend. The Japanese have a word, kakusu, which means to hide or conceal. And there's a quiet irony in the fact that most of us hide our own spending from ourselves, not intentionally. But we swipe the card without looking, tap the phone without adding up, and genuinely have no idea where the money went until we check the statement at the end of the month with a faint sense of dread. Kakeibo, which we mentioned a moment ago, addresses this directly. And it does so with the simplest possible tool, a notebook. Before spending money, you write it down. Not after, before. The practice asks 4 questions at the start of every month. How much money do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I spending? How can I improve? And then every week, you record what you spent by hand in categories with a pen. No app, no spreadsheet formula, just your handwriting and your honesty. Here's what the research shows. A study from Princeton University's neuroscience department found that physically writing information by hand activates deeper cognitive processing than typing the same information. When you write a number down, when you feel the pen move, your brain registers it differently. The number becomes real in a way that a digital transaction never quite does. It's like the difference between reading about a place and actually standing in it. You can read the description of a forest 100 times, but the moment you're there, when you can feel the temperature and smell the air, it becomes something else entirely. Writing your spending makes your money real, and real things are harder to ignore. The Kakeibo system has been in continuous use in Japan for over 120 years. There are families where 3 generations of women have kept the same style of notebook. Not because they were required to, because it works. Try this. For the next 7 days, before you spend anything beyond a recurring bill, write it down first. Just the item and the amount. In a notebook, on your phone notes app, wherever. The act of writing it before you spend it creates a small, powerful pause. Habit 3. One in, one out. There is a Japanese concept called mottainai, one of those words that doesn't translate neatly because the feeling behind it has no direct Western equivalent. Roughly, it means, what a waste, but it carries grief in it. A genuine sadness at the careless disposal of something that still has value. Mottainai shapes the way many Japanese people relate to objects, and by extension, to the money those objects represent. When something is brought into the home, something of equal weight should leave. Not out of minimalist ideology, out of respect for what you already own. This habit has a direct financial benefit that compounds quietly over years. When you know that bringing something new home means releasing something you already have, you think much more carefully before acquiring. The question stops being, do I want this? And becomes, is this worth the weight of what I'd give up to make room for it? That question slows everything down, and slower spending is almost always wiser spending. Think about a kitchen counter with no space left. Every item on it is there because it arrived and never left. Now imagine a kitchen counter where the rule is simple. Something new can come in only if something else goes out. Suddenly, the counter stays manageable. Nothing accumulates by accident. Every object earned its place. Your finances work the same way. Every subscription, every recurring purchase, every new category of spending takes up space in your budget. Mottainai asks you to honor what already occupies that space before inviting something new in. But if that changed how you think about what you own, the next habit goes even deeper, all the way to the moment of decision. Try this. Before your next non-essential purchase, identify one item you currently own that serves a similar function. If you can't think of one to release, sit with the question for 48 hours before buying. Habit 4. The pause before the purchase. In 2018, researchers at the University of Southern California published a study that found the average American makes between 35,000 and 40,000 decisions per day. Of those, somewhere between 200 and 300 are related to spending or consumption. Most of those decisions happen in a fraction of a second. The hand reaches, the card taps, the button clicks, before the conscious mind has had a chance to weigh in. Japanese saving culture has an answer to this that predates behavioral economics by several generations. It's a practice called ma, meaning pause or the space between things. In music, ma is the silence between notes. In architecture, it's the empty space that gives a room its feeling of breath. In personal finance, ma is the deliberate gap you create between wanting something and doing anything about it. Many Japanese families practice what they call the 3-day rule, not spending on any non-essential item without waiting at least 72 hours. Not because they distrust themselves, but because they understand that desire and need are not the same thing, and time reveals the difference with remarkable clarity. It's like setting down a heavy bag after a long walk. In the moment you're carrying it, putting it down feels like relief. But once you've rested, you might find you didn't need most of what was in it at all. The pause is the rest. It lets the urgency dissolve so you can see the actual value clearly. In practical terms, this habit alone can reduce impulse spending by between 20 and 40%, according to consumer psychology research from the Journal of Consumer Research. Not through willpower, through time. This doesn't mean you never enjoy buying things. It means the things you do buy were genuinely wanted, not just wanted in the moment. Try this. Create a want list. A simple note on your phone or a page in a notebook. When you feel the impulse to buy something non-essential, write it down with the date. Revisit it in 72 hours. If you still want it with the same intensity, the desire is real. What all of these habits have in common is that they slow down the relationship between you and money. They create space for thought, for clarity, for intention. And the two habits that remain go even further than the practical. They begin to work on something deeper, the way you feel about wealth itself. Habit 5. Gratitude for what already functions. There's a Japanese ritual called kansha, which means gratitude but carries within it the recognition of what you've been given, including the ordinary things. The working refrigerator, the shoes that haven't worn through yet, the phone that still functions. In Japanese culture, kansha extends to objects. Before discarding something, before replacing something that still works, there is often a moment of acknowledgement, a quiet recognition that this thing served you. Elderly Japanese women have been photographed bowing gently over worn-out sewing needles before discarding them in a ritual called Harikuyo, Needle Memorial Day, which dates back to at least the 17th century. This might sound ceremonial, but the psychology underneath it is genuinely powerful for financial health. When we feel grateful for what we already have, truly grateful, not performatively, the urgency to acquire more softens. Consumerism feeds on dissatisfaction. It needs you to feel that what you have is not enough, that something is missing, that the next thing will complete the picture. Kancha is the quiet antidote. It asks you to look at the picture you already have and notice that it's fuller than you realized. In financial terms, this translates to something measurable. Research from Harvard Business School found that people who practice regular gratitude spend measurably less on discretionary purchases, not because they're suppressing desire, but because the desire genuinely decreases when satisfaction increases. Think about a meal you've eaten slowly, paying attention to every bite, versus one you ate in front of a screen without tasting it. The slow meal leaves you full and satisfied. The distracted one leaves you reaching for something else almost immediately, even if you consumed the same calories. Gratitude for what you have is the slow meal. It satisfies in a way that accumulation never quite does. Try this. Once this week, pick an object you use every day, your coffee maker, your coat, your bed, and spend 60 seconds appreciating that it works. Notice how you feel about replacing it afterward. Habit 6. Build your financial floor, not your financial ceiling. This is perhaps the most quietly radical idea in Japanese saving culture, and it's the one most at odds with the way Western financial culture is designed. In the West, wealth is almost always discussed in terms of upward aspiration. Earn more, invest more, grow more. The goal is a ceiling, a number large enough to mean you've arrived. And so people spend their lives looking upward, straining towards something just out of reach, and feeling financially inadequate regardless of what they earn. Japanese saving philosophy, particularly among the middle class, tends to orient differently. The goal is a floor, a stable base that cannot be shaken by ordinary disruptions. A financial floor means you have enough that small emergencies don't become catastrophes, enough that a month of lower income doesn't cause panic, enough that you can make decisions from a place of calm rather than fear. The Japanese concept of ikigai, your reason for being, the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, is not primarily a financial concept, but it carries a financial implication. When your life has meaning that isn't contingent on spending, you need less to feel like you have enough. The floor doesn't need to be very high when the life built on it is already rich. Statistics from the Bank of Japan consistently show that even lower-income Japanese households maintain emergency reserves of 2 to 4 months of expenses. Not because they are wealthier than their Western counterparts, but because the floor is treated as sacred, the first priority, not the last. It's like building a house. You can dream about the roof all you want, the skylights, the architecture, the view, but a house without a solid foundation doesn't stand. The floor is what makes everything else possible. This doesn't mean you stop dreaming about the ceiling. It means you build the floor first and then dream from a stable place. Try this. Calculate your true monthly floor, the minimum you need to cover food, shelter, and essential utilities. Then ask yourself, how many months of that amount do you currently have set aside? Let that number be your next savings goal, not an abstract wealth target. Now, this might seem like the simplest list of habits you've ever encountered, and that's exactly the point. None of these 6 habits require a financial product. None require an app subscription, a course, a coach, or a complicated system. They require only a shift, a quiet, internal reorientation toward the money that is already moving through your life. Because here's the thing. The reason most saving strategies fail isn't a lack of information. You already know you should spend less than you earn. You've known that for years. The reason they fail is that they treat saving as a discipline to be imposed rather than a relationship to be cultivated. What Japanese saving culture offers is something different. It offers a way of seeing money that makes saving feel natural, even generous. Because when you save first, you are generous with your future self. When you write before you spend, you are honest with yourself about what you truly value. When you practice mottainai, you are respectful of the work it took to earn what you have. When you pause, you are kind enough to your own mind to let it catch up with the moment. When you practice kancha, you are wise enough to recognize that satisfaction was always available. You were just looking in the wrong direction. And when you build your floor, you are building a life that can weather ordinary storms without breaking. What all of these habits have in common is that they build something invisible and immensely valuable, a sense of financial self-respect. Not pride, not ego, just the quiet, steady knowledge that you are someone who handles money with care. And that feeling, once it takes root, changes everything. Not dramatically, not overnight, silently. The way a seed grows underground for weeks before you see any evidence of it at all. You don't need to begin with all 6. One is enough for today. Pick the one that felt most like something you already wanted to be doing, and begin there, just there. The rest will come. Wealth that lasts isn't built in dramatic moments of decision. It's built in the ordinary Tuesday morning when you write down what you're about to spend, or the Saturday afternoon when you pause before buying something you might not remember wanting by Wednesday. It's built in the accumulation of small, quiet choices that nobody else sees. The Japanese have known this for a very long time, and now, so do you. What about you? Which of these 6 habits felt the most true to something you've already sensed but maybe never had a name for? Leave it in the comments. I read every single one. If this kind of content speaks to you, the slow, deliberate exploration of how other cultures have quietly solved problems we didn't even know had solutions, this channel is where I share it every week. Not to tell you what to do, just to show you what's possible. If you feel like this is a space worth returning to, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it means you won't miss what comes next. We're only getting started.